The rise of Marius, the hero of the people. Rome, by the end of the 2nd century BC, was a powerful republic, but it was torn apart from within. Foreign wars had enriched the generals and ruined the small farmers. Political corruption devoured the Senate, and social inequality grew unchecked. The old city of citizen soldiers, men who fought for love of their homeland, was becoming an empire ruled by elites, clientelism, and unrestrained ambition. It was in this turbulent world that Gaius Marius emerged, a homo novus, a new man of humble origins from the small town of Arpinum. With no noble titles or illustrious ancestors, Marius rose purely through merit and discipline. His military career carried him to the consulship, and his victories against the barbarian tribes made him the hero of the Roman people. When the Cimbri and Teutones threatened to destroy Rome, it was Marius who saved the republic with strategy and courage. But what truly changed history were his military reforms. Marius allowed the poorest citizens, the proletarii, to enlist in the army. Until then, only landowners could serve as legionaries. At first glance, it seemed a gesture of social justice, but in truth, it permanently shifted the soldiers' loyalty. They no longer fought for the republic, but for the general who paid them, rewarded them, and promised them land. Thus was born a new kind of power, the personal authority of the commander over his legions. That silent seed would grow into centuries of civil wars and culminate in the empire of Julius Caesar. The young Caesar, in fact, grew up admiring Marius, his uncle on his mother Aia's side, and saw in him the example of a man who dared to challenge the old senatorial order. But success breeds enemies. Among those who once served him was Lucius Cornelius Sulla, a cold, methodical, and deeply ambitious aristocrat. The mirror opposite of Marius, defender of the old senatorial order and patrician authority. The return of Sulla to Rome and the killings. Sulla believed himself the true guardian of Roman tradition and stability. Although he had once served under Marius, he resented being overshadowed by the plebeian general. When the Senate appointed him commander in the war against Mithridates VI, king of Pontus, the aging Marius sought to reclaim his former glory through political maneuvering. With popular support and allies among the commoners, he tried to seize command for himself. That rivalry marked something unprecedented. In 88 BC, for the first time in history, a Roman general marched his legions against his own city. Sulla crossed the sacred gates of Rome, a sacrilegious act, and imposed his will upon the Senate by force. The streets were filled with Roman soldiers, and the blood of Roman citizens stained the marble of the forums. Marius fled into exile in Africa, but the lesson had been learned. Whoever controlled the army controlled the state. When Sulla departed eastward for his campaign, Marius returned, burning for revenge. He briefly reclaimed power, ordering executions and purges. He died soon after, but the violence did not end. When Sulla returned victorious from the east, he repaid blood with blood, unleashing a calculated terror. In 82 BC, Sulla invaded Rome once again, defeated his enemies, and established a reign of terror. He published the infamous proscriptions, lists of enemies of the state whose names authorized any citizen to kill them and seize their property. Senators, equities, and even old allies perished. It is said that more than 9,000 Romans died in that purge. Rome, once proud of its libertas, descended into tyranny and fear. Sulla then declared himself dictator without limit of time, claiming to restore the republic. In reality, he concentrated all power in his own hands, reformed the Senate, stripped the tribunes of their rights, and destroyed the foundations of popular politics. His Rome was a city silenced and ruled by the sword. The lessons Caesar would learn. Among those who witnessed this nightmare was a young patrician of 18, Gaius Julius Caesar. Nephew of Marius through his aunt Julia, Caesar became a natural target of Sulla's vengeance. He was placed on the proscription lists and forced to flee, hiding in the houses of friends and distant villages in Latium. For months he lived as a fugitive, risking his life each day. When he was finally pardoned, the experience left an indelible mark. Caesar learned by watching. He realized that Sulla had proven a truth that no one had dared reveal before. The Senate could be intimidated, institutions could be corrupted, and real power lay with the legions. Decades later, when Caesar himself crossed the Rubicon, he echoed Sulla's act, but with a different purpose. If Sulla had marched to destroy, Caesar would march to rebuild Rome in his own image, concentrating authority in the hands of one man. When Sulla abdicated and retired to private life, he genuinely believed he had restored the republic. He died at peace, but deluded. The republic was already dead. The system that had sustained Rome for centuries had rotted from within. Sulla had merely opened the path for the great warlords. Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, who would transform the old republic into an empire of emperors and armies loyal to personal power. The legacy of blood. The conflict between Marius and Sulla was the first collapse of the Roman Republic. It was not just a struggle between two men, but between two visions of the world. The power of the people versus the power of the aristocracy. The hope of equality versus the fear of change. Rome was never the same again. From then on, every general aspired to be a new Sulla, the armed savior, the restorer of order. But as Marius had shown before him, every savior can become a tyrant. And so, stone by stone, the temple of the Republic crumbled until nothing remained but the empire.